Hello and welcome to the Commander's Quarters, your Magic the Gathering source that helps you command your budget. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all their support. Hey everyone, Mitch coming in for the Commander's Quarters studio. Welcome to the show. So, throughout history, there have been some incredible dynamic duos. You've got Batman and Robin, you've got Shaggy and Scooby-Doo, Will and Grace, and now Tana and Sakashima. You know, that classic story of an elf druid that hangs out with saprolings and her human rogue shape-shifting friend. Yeah. Anyways, today's episode comes to you courtesy of Dennis, who's supported this channel as a general tier patron, and I truly couldn't do this without the support from amazing patrons like Dennis, so thank you so much, Dennis. And today, Dennis is going to handle the intro for me.
Hey Mitch, this is Dennis from Pennsylvania. For my deck tech, I'd like to see a build around Sakashima of 1,000 Faces, partnered with Tana the Bloodsower, focused on making clones, cloning tokens, making tokens of clones, and or making clones of tokens.
So as Dennis said, today's deck tech's going to be built around Tana and Sakashima, focusing on clones and tokens in clones. So, Tana the Bloodsower is a 2/2 elf druid with trample that costs 2 red and green. She has, whenever Tana the Bloodsower deals combat damage to a player, create that many 1/1 green sapling creature tokens, and of course she has partner. And then Sakashima of 1,000 Faces is a 3/1 human rogue that costs 3 and a blue, and you may have Sakashima of 1,000 Faces enter the battlefield as a copy of another creature you control, except it has Sakashima 1,000 Faces' other abilities, and the legend rule doesn't apply to permanents you control. And of course, it also has partner. So Tana the Bloodsower can definitely be a great token producer for us. Whenever she hits, we make tokens. So if we've got some ways to pump her up, we can get even more tokens, and we can also use Sakashima to either copy Tana or some of our other token producers as well to essentially just turn us into a token producing monstrosity that is unstoppable, and you'll see what I'm talking about here in a bit. Let's start off first by talking about some draw spells that can be really effective in this deck. Shamanic Revelation and Biomantic Mastery come to mind. Shamanic Revelation says draw a card for each creature you control, and you gain 4 life for each creature you control with power 4 or greater. That first part is probably going to be a little more important for us. We're going to make a lot of tokens. Some of them might be small. That's okay, though. Again, we're going to just flood the board with tokens, so drawing, say 10 plus cards for 5 mana is a fantastic deal. Biomantic Mastery is a sorcery for 4, Simic. Says draw a card for each creature target player controls, then draw a card for each creature another target player controls. Now, most of the time, we're going to be one of those targets. Doesn't have to be us, but usually it is. And then we're just basically going to draw based on the number of creatures we have, and then someone else too. So again, although it does cost 7 mana, this can easily draw 7 plus cards. It's going to be well worth the cost. Now, when it comes to token producers, we've got a wide variety of ones that can make tokens in different ways. First up, we've got Mycoloth, which it's a 4/4 fungus for 3 green. It's got Devour too. So when it enters the battlefield, we can sacrifice any number of creatures, and this creature enters the battlefield with twice that many ++1 counters on it. So if we've got some other tokens in play already, we can sacrifice those to Mycoloth, and then basically just get a lot of counters on Mycoloth, because then it says at the beginning of your upkeep, create a 1/1 green sapling creature token for each ++1 counter on Mycoloth. So the more creatures that we sacrifice up front, the more that we get later. So basically we get twice as much as we sacrificed, essentially because of that Devour. So, again, this is every single one of our upkeep, so if we keep Mycoloth on the table, it can make us an absurd amount of tokens. Speaking of an absurd amount of tokens, we've got Verdant Force. Now, Verdant Force is a 7/7 for 5 green, so 8 mana in total, but since we're in a green deck, we've got plenty of ways to ramp effectively and efficiently, so we can get this out pretty quickly, and then at the beginning of each upkeep, we get a 1/1 green sapling creature token, so it is well worth that cost. Again, that's each upkeep, not just our upkeep, so one trip around the table with 4 players, we're going to be getting 4 tokens, and that's just with 1 turn. Again, we've got clones in this deck too, so once it's in play, let's make some clones of it, and get an absurd amount of tokens every single turn. Now, another way to get tokens is with token producers that are based off of a cast trigger, like Young Pyromancer, Talrand, and Murdering Mystic. Each basically say whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, you make a token. Young Pyromancer gives us a 1/1 red elemental for each one that we cast. Talran gives us a 2/2 blue drake token with flying, and Murmuring Mystic makes us a 1/1 with flying. So yeah, each of these essentially gives us a different token. All can be very effective. Obviously, the most effective out of these are the 2/2 flyers from Talran, but all of them can still help us really take over the game at a certain point. Again, if we've got a clone copy of one of these and we're just casting one instant or one sorcery, we're getting a lot of value out of that, even more value than they just normally produce for us. Now, speaking of cast triggers, we also have Dragonlair Spider and Arasta of the Endless Web, both of which trigger when our opponents cast certain things. Dragonlair Spider is a 5/6 with reach, which isn't bad on its own. It says whenever an opponent casts a spell, put a 1/1 green insect creature token onto the battlefield. So this is on any spell that our opponents cast. And again, if we get multiple copies of this out, the more spells our opponents cast, the more creature tokens we're going to be getting. Arasta is a bit more specific, a 3/5 spider with reach that says whenever an opponent casts an instant or sorcery spell, create a 1/2 green spider creature token with reach. So, although this is more specific, our opponents are still obviously going to be casting instants and sorceries throughout the game, and the token that this makes is going to be more effective than the other ones. Basically, a 1/2 with reach is going to be better than just a 1/1 from the Dragonlair Spider, although we do get less of them. Both are very effective in this kind of a deck, and again, we can clone them and get even more copies of them. Another one that might be a great target for Sakashima is Xyrus the Writhing Storm, a 3/5 Snake Leviathan, because that's a thing, with flying, that says whenever an opponent draws a card except the first one they draw on each of their draw steps, create a 1/1 green snake creature token. And then whenever Xyrus the Writhing Storm deals combat damage to a player, you and that player each draw that many cards. So, Commander is a game where players enjoy drawing more than one card, during their turn, or like to draw cards on opponent's turn, so this is going to just trigger on its own, obviously. And then also, when it hits, it triggers, and is a good way to not only draw cards, but also to, get a ton of tokens in play. And again, Sakashima can copy it because, again, with Sakashima, the legend rule doesn't apply for us, which is very nice. Now, when it comes to clone effects outside of Sakashima, we've got a couple of different ways to go about it. A card like Cackling Counterpart can make us a creature token that's a copy of a creature that we control, and we can flash it back, so we can make an actual token of it, which can be very useful in certain situations, and we'll talk about it here in a bit. And then clone is just another standard clone. Actually, the term clone came from clone, I believe. I'm saying clone plenty of times in this episode. Anyways, basically just comes into play as a copy of another creature on the battlefield. So basically, we can clone an opponent's creature or one of our own too. Both have their uses in this kind of a deck. And again, the more copies of those token producers that we get in play, the more ridiculous our board state can get. Now, a card like Second Harvest can really take advantage of all of our token producers, as well as those clone effects that make a token. So Second Harvest is an instant that costs 2 green. It says for each token you control, create a token that's a copy of that permanent. So for 4 mana, instant speed, this can double up our token army. And again, that includes any of those clone tokens that we make. So if we clone a token producer and make a clone token of it, and then we double it, you can see where the math kind of gets a little crazy with this kind of a deck where we're just making an absurd amount of tokens in a singular turn, and we can easily flood the board with something like this. Now, when it comes to finishing our opponents off, we've got a couple of different ways to go about that. Overwhelming Stampede is always a great one. Until end of turn, creatures you control gain trample and get +X/+X, where X is the grace power among creatures you control. We've got plenty of creatures in this deck that have a decent amount of power. If you've got your Verdant Force out there, that's +7/+7 to all of our creatures, which is going to be absolutely huge, especially with all those tokens. Again, turning basically our 1/1s into 8/8s, and trample. It's going to be bye-bye from there. Brutaclad Telcor Engineer is another way to go about this. A 4/4 that says creature tokens you control have haste, so that's already just a really good effect, giving our creature tokens haste and letting them swing right away. It also says, at the beginning of combat on your turn, create a 2/1 blue mirror artifact creature token. Then you may choose a token you control. If you do, each other token you control becomes a copy of that token. So again, with one of those clone spell effects that makes a creature token out of one of our creatures, this can get absolutely absurd. Essentially, it's turning every single one of our tokens, that means all the saprolings, all the spiders, everything on the board that we have that's a token, we can turn it into one of those clone tokens. And basically, if that's a token producer clone, things can get even more absurd. Again, the math in this is going to be really fun. And then Sakashima's Will is another card that can really help us out. It says choose one. If you control a commander as you cast a spell, you may choose both. Target opponent choose a creature they control, you gain control of it. Choose a creature you control, each other creature you control becomes a copy of that creature until end of turn. So this, again, like Brutaclad, can turn all of our creatures into something. This isn't limited to it just being a token and turning our tokens into something. This can turn literally all of our creatures into one creature until end of turn. So if we're going to be swinging out, we can just turn all of our tokens and everything into something beefy. and swing and win from there. So yeah, this deck can really get out of hand pretty quickly and take over the game, just flooding the board with an absurd amount of tokens and clones and clone tokens, and you get the idea. If you're looking for the entire deck list, go ahead and find that in the description below, and while you're at it, make sure that you comment and let me know what you think about this deck. What cards would you add in? What cards would you take out? What direction would you personally take this deck? So yeah, let me know in the comments below, and as always, thanks again, and have a good one.